So I wanted to share, I love the Dharma. It gets you chewing and chewing and chewing. Last night, Venerable Sompton and I and Stephen and Venerable Losong went down to the Unitarian Church down in Spokane, where we have been giving leading meditation classes for quite a few years. And we are in the about 2/3 of the way through living with an open heart, or living open-hearted life that Venerable did with Russell Coates. A lovely book on the practical application on how to cultivate compassion in our lives. So last night we were on chapter 42, which is only a page and a half, maybe two pages at a stretch. And it's called Describing Situations Accurately. And it led to quite a vital interactive night and quite a bit of conversation on the way home. And so I'm continuing to think about this, and I wanted to share some of the high points of the class as I heard it and understand my own mind around it. So first of all, describing situations accurately and how hard it is to do. Okay, and there are three major things this was a chapter that Russell did, on three things that give us, that make it very difficult for us to go into any situation in the course of our daily life and to be able to read it as a simple observation and to be able to meet the situation fairly accurately and appropriately, so that these three things that sort of influence how we experience our life. So first of all, because we're in the desire realm, we have these five senses. You know, the visual, the olfactory, the auditory, the gustatory, and the tactile. And our life experience is a continual uploading of the information that is supposed to be quite simple. You know, visual is shape and color. Auditory is different ranges of sound coming into these different parts of the ear. The tongue has got different taste, tactile senses and things. But because we're in the desire realm, we've got this continual influx of information. Okay, so that's one of the things that influences then how we interpret what's going on in our life. The second one is those are our five sense consciousnesses, and the sixth one is our mental consciousness. And what goes in here is that the five consciousnesses take in this rather quick, direct perception, and immediately the mental consciousness sort of engages, and depending on what's going on in our minds, really influences how that sensory experience comes across. And so the second one is that all of our previous experiences held within our continuum, forget about just what happened this morning, but what happened last year, what happened when we were 6, what happened perhaps even in previous lives, because we've got a lot of proclivities and predispositions that color our experiences too. So you've got the five sense consciousness influencing how we experience our lives, and then we have this mental consciousness that has all these mental factors arising in them, thoughts, emotions, ideas, concepts, and depending on, you know, how much we've got hiding in there or getting stored in there, if you have certain cooperative conditions out there in our life, they can come in and sort of overlay and become filters through which we're experiencing our life as well. And then the third one is that we have, as part of our human experiences, that and part of the mental consciousness is all these emotions. You know, we have a very, the sensory consciousnesses, they really, they can generate a lot of emotions, plus these, you know, memories from who knows when, and our habits and our karmic predispositions and whatever. So we're coming into a room with a group of people that we don't know. With these three things coming into play, the sense consciousness is taking in information, all of our previous times we've ever walked into a room with a whole bunch of people that we didn't know, whatever emotions come as a result of that, maybe there's some excitement, maybe there's some curiosity, maybe there's some insecurity, fear, terror, who knows. And then we go ahead and we interpret what we think is going on. And what we were talking about, what the point of the chapter last night is that we absolutely believe without a doubt that the way that we perceive our life experiences and situations are coming from a totally realistic, objective, accurate perspective, that there's nothing coloring them whatsoever. And so part of the chapter last night was to see that these three things play a huge part on how we project and how we interpret our life experiences. And that because we think that the person, the object, the situation exists exactly as it appears. And this is the grossest level of misconception. I mean, we've got the ignorance, the seeing things as inherently existent, subtly underneath this, playing all the time. But this is all of the gross projection that we're doing because of all these influences coming from our senses, our thoughts, our emotions, our mental consciousness. And we were talking last night saying that the best way or the best clue or red flag to indicate that this is most likely going on, because sometimes it's not. We're simply seeing things conventionally, as they are, mistaken nonetheless, is that if our minds are getting disturbed or becoming under the control of some sort of affliction, whether it's anger, whether it's attachment, whether it's jealousy, whether it's pride, chances are that we are moving into some sort of fantasy, that we're moving into some sort of projection with these influences from the sense consciousnesses meeting these mental consciousness, these mental factors, these emotions that may be present in our minds, maybe someplace submerged in our minds. And then the afflictions basically, as I think Venerable has said quite clearly, is anger is an erroneous conception. It's an exaggeration. Attachment is an exaggeration. Jealousy is an exaggeration. We're imputing onto this very somewhat simple, mundane experience of walking into a room with people that we don't know. And it becomes a major drama. It becomes a major fictional writing. It becomes a major screenplay. And then we respond as if this is an accurate assessment of what's going on, and then all sorts of the disturbing emotions increase. We have all sorts of reactions to what could be a fairly simple experience becomes then an environment for a lot of disturbance and a lot of suffering in our own minds. So the point. And we were talking on the way home, just kind of going, gosh, it's incredible that so many times during the course of the day this is happening. That a simple exchange, a simple looking out at something, noticing an object on the counter, there's all of this overlay that gets put on that we're not even aware of. So there's the final paragraph in this chapter is the value of trying to describe just the facts. There's a cup on the counter. It's turned upside down. There was a circle of brown stain beneath it. All right? That's all it is. Not some jerk left their cup with their tea stains permeating the Formica counter. I can't stand this. This happens all the time. It's just a cup upside down with a little bit of brown stain around the rim. Okay. That it stops. Okay. The value of trying to describe just the facts is that it stops us from creating threatening fantasies, dwelling on what happened and making assumptions about what we think the other person's motivation was, or how his or mine works. By focusing on the facts, we often come up to see that nothing happened that was worth getting worked up about. So this was the conclusion of the chapter. And then I added two more kind of insights coming from a little bit more deep Dharma perspective from my own mind, is that because we wish to cultivate our own good qualities and generate the awakening mind, to be able to describe our life experiences more realistically, more accurately is very crucial. Because until we do, problems and misunderstandings will continue to arise. Our ability to be friends with the world, our abilities to meet it with an open heart can't happen. Because it's racing through these projections and these overlays and these filters, making up some sort of movie that isn't even happening. And to commit to being very aware of this in ourselves, because we want to someday really be able to perceive, many lifetimes from now, to be able to perceive directly how reality actually exists. And by working on the misconceptions at this really gross level, is a very powerful way to create the causes to someday be able to do that. Bodhisattvas, from the very beginning, they train in this understanding the gross, erroneous misconceptions. And then as they travel up the paths to awakening, there are subtler versions of this, of which then they train to learn how to identify and eliminate. And since we're bodhisattvas in training, this is where we're starting at the really gross misconceptions of how we think things exist. And that is a really powerful practice of becoming so familiar with our minds, becoming better friends with ourselves, so that we can get to identify what our particular little overlays are, what our particular filters are, not to get hung up on them, not to feel badly about them, but to get very, very clear about how they become obstacles for us to be able to cultivate compassion, to be able to cultivate kindness, to be able to have trust in the world. And so we really want to help identify these science fiction stories that we're creating, and to realize that not only are they not true, but they're not worth the suffering that they cause. So anyway, I wanted to be chewing on it some more too. Anyway, I hope that's helpful.